There we go. What is up, fellas? And welcome to another episode of Rewriting History with me, the Goob. Got a few different topics we're going to cover today. You know, I've talked about how I hang out on weird places on the internet. I'm like in archaeology areas, reading all of the boring archaeology comments, watching 2-hour streams and sifting through all the implications to extract, you know, what these archaeologists are saying. I've got a few examples of stuff like that to show you. You know, a lot of that stuff isn't very presentable. You know, you watch a 2-hour stream and you're like, oh, you said this thing, and then you said this thing, which means that thing. And it's like, it's not a very presentable topic, I guess. But I've got a couple examples that should be decent. So going to give you a little insight into the minds of archaeologists. I'm also going to be talking about my warning from last week. I heed the warning. I really hope the community heeds the warning because it seems to be that I was correct. And then now we're going to get into a little RongoRongo and Indus Valley script. So this was going around on Twitter recently, and you know, you've got all these characters from the Indus Valley and you've got all these characters from Easter Island, and they seem to be the same exact characters. And so, you know, it's posed, is there a connection between Easter Island and Indus Valley, which obviously separated by a lot of distance, and I think separated by a decent amount of time here. But then I also saw people claiming these are fake, that these symbols don't actually exist, that these are fake symbols made up to deceive people, to believe there's some connection here that there isn't. So I went through the Indus Valley script and I went through the Easter Island script and I looked at a whole shitload of tablets and I looked at them real closely, and I found every single character exactly as it is here in both of these scripts. So this is absolutely not fake. It's 100% real. I don't know what the connection is. That's something that will take a hell of a lot more time to investigate. I don't even have all of these characters highlighted for you. It probably took me about 30 minutes or so to find all of these characters in each script, but to actually highlight them all to show you guys would take me well over an hour to do. And as I'm increasingly busy with the Digital Alexandria project, I just have less time to dedicate to this show. So, you know, going back a little bit to this shotgun approach where I'm kind of quickly presenting various topics because I just don't have the time right now to do a deep dive into a singular topic. But I do want to highlight a couple things. So this Easter Island script, it is absolutely, let me see if I can pull up a tablet here real quick. RongoRongo script, because I hate language. I really do not enjoy language. I'm not good at it. I don't understand it. But the RongoRongo language is, and let me switch my screen here so that you guys can see what I'm looking at. Okay, let's try this again. There we go. StreamYard recently updated, trying to figure out it's a little bit different than it used to be. Okay. So this script is really very interesting. It's very pictorial, obviously. I'm trying to find a good image. I mean, this one's not bad. It's very pictorial and it's very stylized. If you look at some of these tablets, you'll see, you know, obviously these very detailed figures, whatever they are. Some of these look kind of like lizards. Some of them are obviously men. There's obviously fish and various things. You'll see objects like fishing rods and bows and arrows and stuff like that. But it's also like highly stylized. Like this seems to be a very refined script, a surprisingly refined script. You know, you have these repeating characters and here you have two of them together. So it seems like a very modular script. So the way we combine CH to make cha, like any of these individual figures can be combined with other figures to increase the complexity of the meaning, as well as you'll see variations this guy right here, he's upside down and he's like holding a club in his hand or something, but you'll see that guy right side up. You'll see him without anything in his hand. You'll see all kinds of variations of these symbols. So it seems to be a very complex, intricate script, which I thought was very interesting. And then can you guys, you couldn't see me, but you could hear me. Okay. There we go. Now you can see me a little bit too. And another thing that I thought was slightly interesting was in the Indus Valley script. The buttons have changed on StreamYard and it's thrown me off. But in the Indus Valley script, there is, and on the original image I showed you, there's a guy holding a bow. And in that one, he was holding a short bow. But there's guys holding long bows and arrows. But there's guys dual wielding a long bow and an arrow in each hand. And is that a technique that's been lost? That sounds ridiculous that anyone could dual wield longbows, but I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Lars Anderson. He's a great example of someone who used archaeology in a very practical way. This guy wanted to relearn the techniques of old archers and ancient archers, and so he studied really, really hard, reading ancient texts and looking at ancient drawings. And he relearned these ancient techniques of these ancient archers. I'm not going to play his videos for you, but if you've never seen this guy, I encourage you to check him out. He's got some accomplishments up here, like most arrows through a keyhole. You see him shooting through the center of a what I believe is a thrown in the air disc there. What he can do with a bow makes what is done in movies look amateurish. The stuff that they do with CGI, he makes look like child's play. So very cool guy to check out. Really excellent application of practical archaeology, taking the knowledge of our ancestors and actually studying them and applying them and learning them himself. I think this guy is really, really cool, and definitely someone worth checking out. I mean, his videos are just very fun. Didn't have a whole lot on the RongoRongo script. Really just wanted to clarify that they are legitimate, that the connection there is real. Those aren't fake images. Those are real characters. It bothers me a lot. I'm very unbothered by people having incorrect opinions, but when someone takes someone else's opinion and then goes, no, they're wrong, I'm going to debunk them and prove them wrong, and that person's wrong, that bothers me a lot. That really grinds my gears. So all the people that were saying those are fake characters, screw you. No, they're not. Do a little research. Don't be a lazy asshole. But on to exposing the attitudes of archaeologists. I talk about this a lot, how they are actively posed against the very core tenets of archaeology and that they actually want to destroy archaeology. So we're going to take a look at some threads from r/archaeology. And the first one is advice for archaeology major. This is just a quick note. One of the responses says, I'm in Washington State and we have incredibly strong heritage resource laws. While Trump is actively dismantling historic preservation from a federal standpoint, states like mine are pushing back as much as possible. We need more CRM professionals for the level of development we're seeing. So, just showing that, again, NAGPRA is not enough for them. The regulations, which we're about to talk about, we're about to show some of the ridiculous ways that these regulations are actually implemented. And here you have an archaeologist talking about how it's not enough, that they need more, and that they're actively fighting for more. Okay. The next thread, what did you wish you knew before becoming an archaeologist? And right away, they talk about networking, nothing really nefarious there. They talk about how archaeologists are completely ignorant of other sciences like earth sciences and things that are pretty crucial to archaeology, like basic geology. Then they complain about the public. But despite some great research, I mostly despise academia as an institution. You know, these are people working within archaeology, openly talking about how terrible and corrupt the institution is. And then the comment I really wanted to highlight is, where is it at? There was someone who very specifically, right. So I'm going to preface this by saying that I've met some really incredible people in this discipline, but I was initially very naive to how petty, cliquish, egotistical, and predatory many academics are. I find the politicking of it all is very exhausting. So, you know, I talk about it a lot. I've talked about how this is an open conversation within archaeological circles. Like, this is something they're very aware of. They understand. You don't speak out against your superiors. They're petty, they're cliquish, they're egotistical, they're predatory. You don't step out of line, or else there's consequences. This is something very well understood within the archaeological community. Here you go, having someone giving a warning. Hey, what do you wish you knew before getting into archaeology? I wish I knew how petty they were. I wish I knew how cliquish they were. I wish I knew that you're not allowed to step out of line, basically, is what this guy is saying. And it's backed up by further comments, people agreeing with him. And then here's where it starts to get really crazy. Here's where NAGPRA comes into play, and the ridiculous statements that I'm making, like archaeologists are directly opposed to archaeology, that archaeologists are actively trying to destroy and erase archaeology. Here's some support for this. So this person is asking about working with indigenous remains in America and Canada. And individual bands will have policies on how they want the remains dealt with. Oftentimes, and I think he meant tribes, oftentimes the First Nations want as little disturbance as possible to the remains, i.e. no ground disturbance, no movement of remains, limited analysis. Projects sometimes get reworked to go around remains. So if you find remains, the normal standpoint, the default is to completely avoid them, to shut down the dig and figure out how, if you even can complete the dig, how you can do it while avoiding the remains. If that's not insane to you, I don't even know what you're doing watching this channel, because that's really, really damn insane to me. There may be expanded analysis, but it is on a case-by-case basis, provided amount of level of preservation of remains. Context from Ontario. When ancestral remains are encountered during archaeological activities, the Bereavement Authority of Ontario is contacted by the archaeologists. They are the agency that specifically orders a burial investigation and is a separate report from the archaeological assessment. The archaeologist is also responsible for alerting the nearest Indigenous community. This, of course, has problems because many communities have been displaced, but I've noticed that there's pretty good communication between the communities and the archaeologists these days, and the appropriate community is usually informed. That part's not super relevant, but after the burial investigation is done and approved, the work comes in establishing a permanent resting spot. And depending on where you are, some communities have a small cemetery for just this kind of occurrence. This report is also circulated to the ministry for review. So again, the default is that when bodies are found, they're not studied. They don't go into academic, possession to be tested. They are immediately relocated and they are reburied and hidden away from any scientific study. So, when we're talking about like finding evidence of various people groups in the Americas, and you wonder, why don't we have DNA evidence? If there were all of these people over here, why don't we have DNA evidence? Well, there's a good reason right there. A while back, I told an anecdote about meeting a guy in a bar who gave me a story about being on a dig, and they found remains. Before they even found the remains, they were looking at the dig and realizing it didn't really look Native American, right? They realized they were digging into a burial spot. So they contacted the local tribe, and the local tribe was basically watching them work. And as they worked, and they did eventually get down to the bodies, they even extracted the bodies and even had the bodies in a location where they could be DNA tested. and they were ready to do the DNA testing, and the tribe came in, shut it down, said, rebury the bodies. There's not going to be any testing on this. There's not going to be any publication about this. You're not going to dig this site anymore, because everything in that burial site looked non-native. It looked more Celtic, according to this guy. Now, this is just an anecdote. I have nothing to prove this story or validate this story. It was just a story I heard from a random guy in a bar. But I don't really have any reason to doubt him. And everything that I've seen, everything I'm showing you now, seems to be directly supporting, such a claim. I should add that I've not heard of remains being prevented or indefinitely delayed from reburial for study, right? So make sure you're understanding what it's saying here, because it's not saying that they've been prevented from study. It's saying that he's never seen a case where they've been prevented from reburial for study. Again, that's crazy to me that this is the default. And again, go back to that first thread I showed you where they're demanding this be even stricter. This is not enough. They want it to be even more strict, give even more control to the natives, give them even more ability to shut down any and all research and to erase previous research that's already been done. When there's a relative certainty that development is occurring, that's irrelevant. There's more on this. If you want to continue reading this thread, you can check it out, and it basically just keeps reaffirming what I've said already here. But here's where it really gets crazy, right? Because that's all about bodies. That's about human remains. And hey, maybe you guys don't feel like me. I think that these things should be studied. If they're directly connected to a tribe that's still actively around, maybe there's a different case there. But, when we're talking about tribes that have been extinct for over 1,000 years, those don't belong to any current natives. I don't think those bodies should be getting reburied. I think they should be getting studied. I think that's how we treat other areas like European archaeology. I don't actually know what's done with the bodies in European archaeology, so maybe I'm off here. But modern day pagans don't have ultimate say over archaeology digs that happen in Europe today. I don't really understand this double standard for natives. But anyways, this is about artifacts. So if you think it's reasonable to treat bodies that way, do you still think it's reasonable to treat artifacts this way? And I'm not going to read through this whole thing because this one is long, this one is tedious, this one is not convenient for presentation. But if you want to read this thread yourself, there's some absolute insanity here. They cover things like how there are policies so that photographs are not shown of any of this stuff. They discuss how these things are being removed from universities. But even crazier than that, they are discussing this whole conversation here is, do you think objects have agency? Right? That is the conversation that's being had here. And I've talked about how with NAGPRA, all of these artifacts, every single Native American artifact falls under the guise of NAGPRA because it's imbued with this spirituality. There's this Pocahontas myth where even the wind is a spirit and everything is humanistic and has these traits and characters. So every single object is sacred and must be hidden away from the public. And in that thread, you have people very literally, not figuratively, not unambiguously, but literally referring to artifacts and objects as people. As people. The artifacts are people to them. They have the spirits of people in them, so they are people. So, again, I'm just trying to get people to understand the insanity that is happening within the archaeological community. They see archaeology as a colonialist, evil, oppressive sin, and it must be eradicated. And, not only do we have to hide away all of the bodies, not only are we not allowed to study the bodies, all research is shut down immediately by default. The default is to not study them, not disturb them, to rebury them immediately. But now we have people openly talking in the archaeological community, and this doesn't seem to be isolated, about how these artifacts are people. They are treating them as if they are also people, imbued with the spirits of people. This is absolutely insane. They want to completely erase and remove from the public record all knowledge of Native Americans and their history. That's insane to me. That's absolutely insane to me. It's disgusting. It's evil. It's just, but yeah, I talk about it a lot. I wanted to give you guys some examples. Do check out that thread if you're doubting me. It's not a fun read. It's a boring read. It's a dense read. But if you read all the comments, you will see what I'm talking about. And now on to the warning. So I didn't even put 2 and 2 together initially. There was the SAA recently, and it was immediately after the SAA that this coordinated attack from archaeologists happened. There was a lot of activity on Twitter a few weeks ago where they were really, really coming at Jimmy and other people very, very aggressively. I even had them come at me and call me racist and stuff. My favorite, I think, was when one of these archaeologists he had a full-on spaz out meltdown where he, in all caps, was accusing Jimmy of being a liar with like 3 exclamation points because Jimmy said that Göbekli Tepe was a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has been since 2018. It's a really simple Google to check this. So you can look at the list of UNESCO World Heritage Sites on their website. And the dude was frothing at the mouth, calling Jimmy a liar and a fraud. You can't trust people who lie like this. Totally unhinged. So that's a bit contradictory to my warning, because my warning was that these people, I think, are going to try and get their act together a little bit. Gosh, I'm struggling with, why am I struggling so much? It didn't, the change to StreamYard is so small. It just like removed the way that you would close a window that you're sharing, but it's throwing me off so much. So the SAA just happened, and here you have someone who attended it, and they are discussing at that 2025 SAA meeting, pseudo-archaeology wasn't just a footnote. There were full sessions on misinformation, digital engagement, and how archaeologists should respond publicly. One talk focused entirely on how pseudo-archaeology spreads online and what professionals can do about it. The field is stepping into the spotlight, and that's worth unpacking. This is actually a pretty decent thread worth reading from Moundlore here. He seems to be one of the more reasonable people on the mainstream, and he seems to be calling for the mainstream to be reasonable. And apparently that was a part of the SAA. So I was picking up on these patterns. I was noticing a very subtle shift. I didn't even put 2 and 2 together that this was because of the SAA, that this shift happened because they had a literal meeting about it. I didn't realize that, but yes, they literally had a big ass meeting about it. And I think my warning, which I'll repeat from last week, is that right now, the tension between archaeologists and alternate archaeologists is at an all-time high. It is more contentious, more insulting and inflamed than it's ever been. People are attacking each other personally, more so than ever before. But then you have this meeting, and I think there's going to be an effort to rein all of that in on the archaeologist side and start attacking people for their arguments rather than attacking them personally. And if the alternate side maintains this same level of hostility, which was brought by the archaeologists, but now is going to be getting pulled back. And if we maintain that hostility while they pull back, it's very quickly going to have a rebound effect where people are going to go, oh, the alternates are the bad guys. They're going to entirely forget about the last year plus of horrible behavior from Dibble and crew. And they will just see that and they'll turn on us. So I really hope that alternate people heed this warning. Not that the people who need to hear it are going to, but at least I'm putting it out there into the ether. So maybe. And he wrote another good thread. Moundlore wrote another good thread, which it looks like I don't actually have pulled up here. But yeah, it's essentially a call for archaeologists to be reasonable human beings, which is a really positive thing, but it's also something that could have pretty bad consequences for our community if we maintain the same hostility. Okay, I'm trying to share the link so you guys can call in. There we go. So if you would like to call in, Michael, I see you in the chat. I saw your comment last week, and yeah, would love to hear from you. I'm just reading through the chat a little bit. These freaking NAGPRAs, yeah, man. Yes, right? Like I don't think I captured my incredulity. I'm not 100% sure how to say that word. Like the ridiculousness of it all, because I don't even know what words to say, but that's insane. That's absolutely insane. And it's the default. So welcome, Michael G. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. I think this, for some reason, my YouTube was still going.
Huh. You're pretty hard to hear. It's really choppy.
Oh, yeah, I turned my volume down. Sorry, dude. My YouTube was still going. Can you hear me
No,
now?
it's like really choppy.
Oh, sorry, dude. I have shitty internet. All right. Yeah, I guess I'm going to have to go then. It's not going to get better. I'm way out in the woods. All right. Sorry, dude.
I'm sorry. I would say stay on, and I'll...
No, don't do it. Don't do it. It's shitty.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. I do apologize, Mr. G. I feel free to call me after the show if you do have my number. You are more than welcome to call me. Yeah, maybe next time. I feel bad, but that was rough. That was too rough to listen to. Yes, and that was it seems like I don't have the proper thread pulled up, but if you check out Moundlore on Twitter, he in fact, give me a second. I'm going to try and find it because it was a really good post that he made. In fact, I retweeted it. Let me just go to my own page to pull it up here. Here it is. Okay. Are you guys looking at what I'm looking at? You're not. Let me get that up there. This. Okay. I think I've got it now. Okay. So yeah, he responded to one of the things I said, and he said, absolutely, this is a system-wide, I am showing you guys, right? I am, okay. This is a system-wide issue, not just an archaeologist problem. Many in academia, museum staff, even federal reps tied to NAGPRA, most aren't allowed to speak freely. Some get silenced entirely without PR clearance or legal review. It's not just about caution, it's about control. Institutions lock down communication to avoid liability, controversy, or even just uncomfortable truth. And that silence widens the gap between the public understanding and professional research. This isn't limited to archaeology. It's a plague across all research fields. I could not possibly agree more. It's something I've been saying for a long time. I've used the example of like, if you dive deep enough into butterflies, eventually you're going to come across a question about butterflies that you're not fucking allowed to ask, right? This is, and I use that example because it sounds so ridiculous, but like, this is a plague across all research fields. Moundlore is 100% spot on with that statement. Gatekeeping info in the name of protecting reputations while misinformation runs wild in open forums. We want accountability, transparency, or public trust in heritage work. We need to fix this culture of silence first. Moundlore, reasonable guy. He's got some excellent takes, and he is openly, calling for this reform in archaeology that I was warning about. So there was everyone was attacking Jimmy. Oh, which one specifically? It was one of the lesser. It might have been JT. I don't quote me on that. Do not quote me on that. But it was like, I think it might have been JT. Dude went fully unhinged. The only other archaeologist I've seen like frothing at the mouth that badly was Von MB Crazy Cat Lady. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about, Rubate. That woman is truly a goddamn psychopath. And what's crazy is that the other archaeologists stand by her side and cheer her on while she is a fully unhinged psychopath. Like really, really crazy. But I think that's about to stop. I think that might stop. I think you might see a sacrificial pawn. Zahi Hawass, I called it out, and it seems like he is a good candidate for it still. They're kind of turning on him. And maybe Professor Dave, perhaps someone else, we'll see. But okay, a couple little points about the Digital Alexandria project. One small correction. I was saying America, that we are starting with America. We are not starting with America. We are starting with the Americas. So we're going to start documenting the Americas, all of them, specifically starting in Peru, because we already have a couple partners that are located in Peru and are documenting these things actively already. But we need more content creators, more partners for the rest of America. We do not have partners yet for the rest of America. So if you know anyone in Bolivia, if you know anyone in North America, and anywhere really, anywhere in the Americas who's actively documenting these megalithic sites, please let us know about them. We need to find these guys. Please don't assume that we know about these people. Like, the internet's become a strange place, right? You'll find this influencer that's got 500 million followers, and it's like, I've never heard of this person before, ever. So yeah, like, don't assume, even if they're a really big person or something, that we've already got them on our radar. It's very possible we don't. So we need people all around the world, but starting in the Americas, we need people. So anyone who's doing this, please let us know. I didn't link in the description my contact info this time, but you can go to my channel page, or you can go to the Digital Alexandria video from last week, and I have my email address, Discord, something else on there as well. I don't even remember, but you can contact me any of those ways about content creators that might be good for the Digital Alexandria project. Okay. Yeah, that's it's still somewhat geographically isolated, just because languages are still, so those internet bubbles match the geographic isolation, right? So the people in India, many of them do speak English, so it's crossed somewhat, but we don't speak Hindi, right? So they're still in their internet bubble, isolated from the rest of the world by their language, which is, dictated by their geographical location. But yeah, no, that's absolutely true what you said, Mr. G. I think there were a few other little things that I had to add to my shotgun here, but I've covered what I wanted to cover. Before I hop off, I do want to clarify the status of the channel, right? I've talked about it before. I was talking about it earlier today. I am doing everything I can to make sure that this Digital Alexandria project actually becomes a reality. And so that is where my time and efforts are going currently. When I do a show, it's still going to be Sunday at 5 p.m. So if you want to watch me, tune in at the same time. That's when it'll be, but there's no guarantee that this will be a weekly show anymore. I think next week I'll have an episode, because my NAGPRA article should finally be coming out. It's either going to come out like right before or right after the episode, so it might be the week after, but I'll cover that NAGPRA article on here, and that'll be an episode. But yeah, there will be less deep dives. There will be less, dedicated hour of content with high quality presentations of images guiding you through everything, because I just don't have the time to dedicate to that. So you might still get that, but you're not going to get that every week. So yeah, hopefully that's acceptable. Hopefully the show's still enjoyable when it is on, but I my priority is Digital Alexandria, and my second priority is spreading the news of NAGPRA. It really is critical. This is a time-sensitive issue. Almost a year has gone on since I started talking and learning about NAGPRA, and there is a very, very slow, like, people are starting to realize, but it's very slow. It's not nearly fast enough. At the current rate we're going, everything will be gone. All Native American history will be erased, and we'll lose everything before people even wake up to the fact that it's happening. So I want to push this NAGPRA issue. I want to get onto other podcasts and spread this news. So moving forward in the immediate future, those are my two primary goals and objectives, is get the Digital Alexandria project up and running and to spread the news of NAGPRA so that we can try and stop the erasure of history, try and stop the destruction of archaeology, try and get these psychopaths exposed to the public so people realize that they're psychopaths. Because, yeah, you know, as Mr. G pointed out, digging into an archaeological dig and stopping it because you found bones, that's insane. So, yeah. Yes. And here's, okay, so Leszek Walkowski, good Polish name there. You, I believe, are newer to the channel, so you probably haven't heard a lot of my NAGPRA stuff, but it is so much more than just the loss of earth mounds. NAGPRA was updated in January 12th, 2024, and it effectively made all Native American archaeology illegal for the public to know anything about. Every single museum in America shut down their Native American exhibits on January 12th because they became illegal. You can find news articles about museums throwing tarps over their exhibits because it was now illegal for the public to see them. And it goes beyond all of that. Universities are removing books from libraries. They're removing books from classrooms. They are removing paintings from walls if they have Native American subject matter. It is a complete and total purge of information of anything and everything Native American. They are not just removing it from public access, though. They are destroying these things. I encourage you to check out Dr. Elizabeth Weiss. She's a fantastic archaeologist and the only archaeologist who's actively employed in archaeology who's fighting against NAGPRA and its insanity. But she's got a lot of really great articles, and she highlights how they've held ceremonies to physically burn, light on fire, and destroy research. Okay, so they had bodies, they reburied the bodies, and then they destroyed all of the associated research with the bodies. And that is something that's in this thread. So I didn't read it to you because it's a long, tedious read. But in this thread here, they are talking about what are they talking about? I forget exactly what they say, but there's stuff in here about how they need to destroy research and no, sorry. What they say is that the research is harmful. They talk about how having this knowledge on these Native Americans, it's harmful spiritually. They even talk about how Dr. Elizabeth Weiss was banned from her own curation facility, not specifically mentioning her, but they discussed how females are not allowed to interact with these Native American objects or bodies. They're not allowed to do research on them because of all of this wumbo jumbo from the natives. It's the females are unclean, the bodies are cursed. So if you interact with them, you have to go to a native priest afterwards to get cleansed. This is all in that thread. All of this is in that thread. They're talking about all of this openly and like as if it's positive. It's not, they're not even talking about it like, oh, this crazy stuff. They're like, no, yeah, you know, women can't be involved in this because they're unclean. And, you know, you'll probably have to go see a shaman afterwards to expel the evil spirits from you if you do interact with these cursed objects and bodies. It's truly insanity. But yeah, I got off on that little tangent and kind of forgot what I was saying about NAGPRA. I think I was just highlighting that it's everything. Everything is in danger. Everything is getting erased, and actively so. It's not just getting removed from public view. It's literally being destroyed. It's being lit on fire, doused in gasoline, and set ablaze. And no one knows this is happening. Like very few people are aware that this is happening. And it's such a radical claim that when you tell people about it, I think their instinct is just to kind of not believe it and like dismiss it. And it's like, yeah, that's wacky. And I bet something like that happened, but like that's an isolated incident. It's not really like they're not destroying archaeology. They are. So yes, and that's something that it's really apparent. Like when you read their opinions, it's shocking how low their opinion of Native Americans are. Like they must be so coddled, and it's just, yeah, it's really, it seems like mockery to me. Like me as a rational person, I read the things that they're saying and I'm like, this is disgusting. And I'm not even someone who's offended by racism, and like they're offending me. It's bad, man. It's real bad. So anyways, hopefully people wake up to just how corrupt archaeology is. I do encourage people, more so than checking out the thread I was just talking about on Reddit, I do encourage you to go check out Moundlore on Twitter and read his 2 recent threads about the SAA and about, trying to mend the rift between alternates and archaeologists. It's, if for no other reason, to prepare yourself for the shift that's coming from the archaeology side, because I do think my warning, we'll see if archaeologists actually have the self-control to rein themselves in like this, but there is obviously an effort to rein it in. We'll see if it actually happens. But yeah, peace out, fellas. Thank you for joining me, and hopefully I'll catch you next week with the NAGPRA article. That should be cool. And maybe it won't be on every week, but when I am on, it'll be at Sundays at 5 p.m. So I'll see you guys then. Later, fellas.